As Janet and Melinda discussed, Stieglitz was moved by the shapes in this image. The man in the straw hat was mentioned, and the crossed suspenders, the fennel leading left. He liked how contrasting with the fennel was the staircase, that they kind of mirrored each other, I think, and then this mast right here created a triangle with the fennel also. And these shapes kind of outlined a story of all these working class people that he had found on this boat. It was kind of a discovery because he had been bored, stuck on this fancy ship with, dragged along by his wife, who he obviously didn't have a lot of common ground with. So I loved that, and I loved hearing his description on how he raced back to his room and got his camera and used his last plate and anxiously waited to see if he had captured the image that he'd imagined and that he had, and it was this perfect image.
Melissa, Janet, and Eve, thank you for those great comments. What we've seen so far here from your comments are three good descriptions describing the circumstances around Stieglitz's photograph. So I'm going to come in here and encourage a different direction for maybe another commenter. What's happening with Stieglitz here is he falls into a category of formalist photographers, which really start focusing on looking at a photograph for its aesthetic qualities. And that's what Stieglitz is doing when you look at the way he's describing his photographic work. He's talking about the lines and the shapes and the light, etc. And as we move forward with the decades in photographic criticism, that becomes a problem for many people because there becomes a growing tension within viewers when they look at images like this one that Stieglitz created, because they start to ask questions about what's really going on in the photograph. So what I want to ask you as a viewer now is, how do you feel about that? Are you able to look at this image and just look at it for its formal qualities, or do you see more? Are you left thinking about more about what's really happening in this image, and maybe, what is it that's really happening?
To answer what you were saying, Michelle, to me, what's happening here is there is a really crowded lower class deck of people going back to Europe. So my first thought was that maybe these were immigrants turned away by Ellis Island because of improper paperwork or health issues. So I did a little digging and found that it was more likely that some of these passengers were artisans on 2-year visas for work returning home because of the booming businesses with carpentry and things like that at the time. But that doesn't explain all of them, of course, and certainly not the women and children pictured here. To me, this photograph depicts the crowded and unhealthy conditions of lower class travel of that time. Um, you could even picture, some of the scenes from movies like Titanic, the same kind of conditions here. You see hanging laundry and women and children exposed to possibly inclement weather and what seems to be possibly higher class passengers looking down at them from the higher deck. Just some of these people here, like the men in the straw hat, for example, don't seem to look to be dressed in the same attire as the people on the lower deck. It's incredibly crowded, like I said, and it's just a really sad sight. For all we know, these passengers don't even have rooms, but are traveling the whole way back to Germany on the decks. Because there have been reports of, a lot of ships uh, charging for the extra tickets, but not having the room, and, having these lower classes travel on the decks. Either way, it's a picture of unhealthy and inhumane conditions, but that's just my opinion.